let's talk about the thing that is taking X by storm. Credit to Juno News for this, for two things: for breaking the story and for being brave enough to do the story. And I guess the third thing is to withstand the storm, because the establishment media, the liberals, and the conservatives are all coming down on Juno News for this. And I guess we'll talk about it in a second about why I think this is in public interest. This goes just beyond, hey, don't talk about a politician's family. I actually agree with that. It's one of the unique things about Canada is that we don't do that tabloid stuff about somebody's family. But this has a unique public interest in it. So Prime Minister Mark Carney sent his eldest child, again, I'm trying to keep this on YouTube, so I cannot misgender, eldest child Sasha Carney to discredited UK Tavistock transgender clinic. Mark Carney's child, Sasha, he uses they, them pronouns and legally changed names, discusses the child's experience at radical Tavistock transgender clinic in an essay unearthed by True North. And this is reported at Juno News. Now, the reason this is relevant, and we talked about this before we came on air, is that, first of all, Sasha Carney's not a child. Sasha Carney is a political figure at this point who frequently posts about their own political leanings, like I voted for Bernie, raising money for prisoners for some reason, went to Yale, so has been very open about this. But why this is in the public interest? Well, first of all, Tavistock, discredited abattoir for young people, where they just go to get butchered up. And this is in the public interest because there have been a lot of people online saying, well, Mark Carney is Catholic. Now, not Catholic like me, but more Catholic like Justin Trudeau, as in they just pick from the cafeteria plate of the thing that they're going to actually subscribe to from Catholic doctrine. But a lot of people have said, oh, it might mitigate some of the gender madness and anti-Christian sentiment you're seeing in the Liberal Party, which has become quite radical on those issues. And this is an indicator that nothing is going to change. For example, and let me be clear, I don't even care about his child's name. I don't care. What I care is that this affects policy, right? We know what Pierre Poilievre thinks about gender issues. He was asked actually by the mainstream media, how many genders are there? And he's like, as far as I know, there's 2. So we know what Pierre Poilievre thinks about these issues. Now we need to ask Mark Carney, because this is a policy concern now, because this is a very expensive proposition of DEI. Will the Liberals roll back their DEI nonsense in the military and foreign funding abroad? Probably not, given what we know now, because this is a personal issue for Mark Carney. Will they continue to fund radical activist groups to go after provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan? Alberta's Bill 26, we talked about at the start of the show. They will probably continue to do this stuff. Will they continue to fund radical activist groups that will go after small town mayors who don't fly pride flags? Probably. They will continue to do those things. And that, even if you don't care about the transgender issue, maybe you're not somebody who cares about women's only spaces. Maybe you're not somebody who cares about women's only sports. Maybe you're not somebody who cares about parents' rights. Maybe you just care about the money. Well, you should care about the money then, because this is not only about the dignity and rights of females, but also about the money that flows out the door for these sorts of things. And so Carney should be asked. Why? Because Poilievre was asked.
That's exactly right. And this is an issue that is forced onto the back burner because it compels elected politicians to talk about things that are indefensible to regular people. Listen, when you see liberals, when you see left-leaning elected politicians, when you see conservative politicians saying, oh, well, children should be left out of this. That is your cue, Canada, to go hard and ask them those tough questions, because They are escaping, they're skirting accountability in their own actions. Do we want people making decisions on our behalf when they may believe that men can become women and women can become men, and just get over it, everybody? I can tell you without a word of a lie, there are a great many Canadian females that are basing every voting decision on this issue, and I for one am absolutely sick and tired of them skirting around it, saying, well, this is complete, you can't talk about these things, you can't talk. When they say that you can't talk about it, that is the exact thing that we should be talking about. Canada, they sent 11 billion of our taxpayer dollars overseas to support these kind of initiatives. That amount is dwarfed by the amount of money our federal government has given activist groups, have given pride groups across the country, have given human rights campaigners to fight against women's rights, family rights, and children's rights. And in a robust and well-functioning society, we know that men protect the women, men are the best protectors of women, and women are the best protectors of children. And this entire industry upsets that rhythm. And so this is something that we should all be real concerned about. We should be real concerned about. When they tell us not to talk about it, we should be talking about it more. The Tavistock Clinic, for anybody that doesn't know, was the first domino to fall. It is a gender clinic in the UK that did nothing but force mentally ill children down medical pathways that would have devastating consequences to these children's lives. It is nothing more than child abuse, state-sanctioned child abuse. And they were shut down, the Tavistock Clinic, because of the immense harms that were done to kids in the UK. There were no safeguards. There were no alternative non-affirming pathways. The Tavistock Clinic was forced to shut down in the wake of public blowback because of the terrible model of care that they offer kids. And here's the crazy thing: Mark Carney and his family lived 1 block from the Tavistock Clinic in the United Kingdom. This young woman, when she identified as a young woman, had no chance to escape this. And I think that his parenting decisions say a lot about the way that he is able to make decisions. If he was able to be railroaded down this pipeline where his child would be destroyed, that says a lot about him as a man. And when he's leading the country, this is of national interest to all of us.
Well,
How come it wasn't this daughter on the stage at the Liberal convention? How come, Mark Carney, you didn't put this daughter on the stage at your Liberal convention? She unavailable that day? That's a question I would ask him straight off the jump.
Well, this prompts policy issues. I don't really care what's going on in Mark Carney's family, but now I have policy questions that affect my daughter, my sex segregated spaces. And we've already asked the question of Pierre Poilievre. So I don't appreciate the shut-uppery. Sasha Carney is an adult. Yes. Tavistock is also being sued by at least 1,000 families over this.
1,000 families, yes.
1,000 families are suing Tavistock. I won't be told to shut up because I want to know how Mark Carney's personal life will dictate his policy decisions. Because this is a deeply personal thing to him. The same way the canola issue is deeply personal to me. The same way women's sports is deeply personal to me. I at least tell you what my biases are. Why did Mark Carney try to hide his? That makes you wonder, doesn't it? But at the end of the day, like I said, if you don't care about any of this stuff, and you only care, you're only a fiscal conservative, well, then you still should care, because this is an enormously expensive industry. The gender DEI industry, gajillions of dollars.
Literally hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay, Canada, yeah. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent on these initiatives as a way to force them from the top down on us. None of this is organic. None of this is a groundswell of support from the bottom. And I really think that it begs the question, what kind of man is he? If he would encourage his daughter to go down this pathway, what kind of man is he?
Well, and then to fully hide this child, I should say, from the public. It's just odd. But yeah,
No, truly. And for the people that argue, "Oh, leave the kids alone. Leave the kids alone. Leave my kids alone when they go to the public library. Leave my kids alone when they go to public school and have radical gender ideology really forced down their throats." If we're talking about leaving kids alone, start with other people's kids. Okay? Start with other people's kids. As long as elected politicians are inserting themselves into my kids' lives, I'm going to be invested what the children of elected politicians are doing in the background too. Thanks very much. Not
yeah,
backing off this topic. Absolutely not.
yeah. I mean, I just won't be told not to talk about it, that I shouldn't be able to ask questions about it, because this is the lens through Mark Carney views the world. And how will it affect his policy decisions that will affect me? It will affect Lise. It will affect our daughters. I think it's a very important thing. And will it affect the fight for parents' rights here in Alberta through the funding of proxies to do the Liberal government's dirty work? I want to know. And I won't be told to shut up, and I won't be told to leave the kids out of it by the very same people who locked my kids up during COVID. I won't have any part of that. Thank you very much. And I think that's it. These are the same people who went after Stephen Harper's religion or Jason Kenney's religion. The very same people. And I'm not hearing any of it. I want to know how this affects policy decisions, particularly when they've already talked to Pierre Poilievre about this issue. Why haven't they not asked Mark Carney how many genders there are? But they asked Pierre Poilievre how many genders there are. Actually, can we bring up that clip? Just so people know I'm not making this up. They asked Pierre Poilievre how many genders there were. Pierre Poilievre handled it excellently. So, you know what? In fairness, and given what we know now, somebody should really ask Mark Carney this. And that is another reason why they don't let independent journalists into this. And let me reiterate again, Sasha Carney is an adult. I don't actually, insofar as I care about Mark Carney's family, I don't actually care about Mark Carney's family. I think normally we would leave the entire Carney family alone, except his wife works for the Eurasia Group, where Gerald Butts works, and the other child went to Tavistock. I think that is of national significance, given what the Liberals have submitted us to for the last 10 years. But let's just show this clip of Poilievre, just so that we can understand the hypocrisy here.
First day on the job, President Trump signed an executive order, the U.S. government only recognizing two genders, male, female. They're unchangeable.
Oh, it's almost like this is internationally significant.
Is that something that you're going to kind of walk in line with, or what are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as Prime Minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Well, there's personally, I am a man. I am a, as people who say cis man. There are people there who, they say they're
me too.
Gender neutral.
Well,
you are a man. Yes. There are people there who say they're gender neutral. Yeah. They say they're gender neutral. They're a trans person. Is that something that you would recognize here? Whereas in the States, at least with their U.S. government, the way they're seeing it, there's only two.
I'm only aware of two, but I mean, if you come up with another list, then you're welcome to do that. But I'm aware of two. And as far as I'm concerned, we should have a government that just minds its own damn business and leaves people alone.
Thank you. You know what? So right there, that makes the point that this is an internationally significant issue, right? The Americans are dealing with it in a certain way. Poilievre has already been asked about this. Now, given what we know about Carney's family makeup, we deserve to know what he feels about these issues, because it affects, 50% of the Canadian population, i.e. women and the men who love us.
Without question. We've over the last 9 years, we've watched women's rights, our right to be free of men in rape crisis centers, in shelters, in prisons, be eroded to nothingness. Because as long as you can have a man self ID into women's spaces, it is no longer a safe space for women. We watched that happen over the last 9 years in Canada. Never mind the harms to children that radical gender ideology has caused to our children, just mass confusion and mass destruction of our youngest people, disassociating with their identities to try and to lie to them and try and tell them that they can be any gender they want or anywhere in between, when sex is immutable, it is unescapable, and it is biologically driven in every single cell of our bodies. But even further than this, Sheila, what we've seen in Canada, especially with some of the major pollsters, is a real convergence of the lead that the Canadian Conservatives have had over the Liberals for the past 2 years, and the Liberals under Mark Carney's leadership. We've seen that gap, that once huge gap of Conservatives, narrow to almost nothing. And I think it's incumbent upon the Conservative Party of Canada to look across the border into the United States and acknowledge that this is the one issue that pulled it across the finish line for the Trump administration. Avoiding this issue is going to do Conservatives no favors, none whatsoever. And they need to be starting to take a really, really strong stance in undoing some of the harms that have been unfurled against Canadian women, and undoing the harms that have been unleashed upon our children. The Conservatives must be brave in this moment, be brave enough to tell the truth, and be willing to say that they're going to undial the harms that have been done to us in this regard.
And right now they're telling everybody to shut up, and that's basically telling us we can't even talk about this issue, and I refuse to.
That is the wrong stance. It is the wrong stance, and it will come back to bite them. It will come back to bite them if the Conservatives don't pull off a win this time, the fourth time. Okay, this will be a fourth loss in a row for them. It will be self-inflicted. I'm so sad to say it. I'm so sad to say it. But when you are afraid to tell the truth to your voters, they will not vote for you. And this is a lesson that they're learning the hard way over and over and over again. So be brave, Conservatives. We know the truth. Say it. Say it.
Mark Carney must answer how many genders there are. Mm-hmm. Should children be able to transition socially or medically? And
can a child be born in the wrong body, Mark? Is it possible for a child to be born in the wrong body, Mark Carney? See what he says to that.
And should biologically, let's call them natal males, be allowed dancing around YouTube's restrictions? Should natal males be allowed to play in biological female sports? Those are the three questions I want him to answer now, because those are make or break issues for a lot of people who are otherwise apolitical.
And I will defer to this. If you cannot tell the truth on this one simple, immutable, biological fact, you cannot be trusted to tell the truth about anything.
And I think we already know that about Mark Carney. He cannot really.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message, because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.